This document covers proper MLA documentation. So everybody should be getting full scores on MLA documentation. There's no critical thinking involved with documentation. It's just a matter of knowing the rules and following those. So if you are watching this video, you will know all the rules. I'm a firm believer if you, once you know better, you do better. And so I'll cover all of the documentation rules in this video, and all you need to do is make sure you're following them. So first off, we'll cover MLA page formatting. So your page formatting, you should have 1-inch margins all the way around. You should have a header with your last name and then a page number. And you set the pagination then, and it goes through the entire document. So the next page will say Zin 2. And note there, it's just your last name only. So it's just the last name and then the space and then the page number. Then you have what's called the MLA header, and it's a 4-line header. Note that it's double spaced. And keep in mind, people first. So your name, your teacher's name, the class, and then your date of submission. With the date of submission, notice that we do it in the European fashion. We don't want a comma in here, so we put the date of the month, and then we spell out the month, and then we put the year. There's no extra space here, so with MLA page formatting, you set your page formatting to double space and then don't touch it. So there's no extra space here between the title and the first paragraph. And note that the title, every word in the title should be capitalized with the exception of articles, prepositions, and conjunctions. So we have a little area here that should be capitalized. Okay, and then we have our paragraph indent at a 1/2-inch indent. And when we get down to the end with the works cited, you'll notice our pagination in there in the header. And we get down to the works cited. The works cited lives on its own page. It's always titled Works Cited, and that gets centered. Note that titles don't have any other formatting besides just the title rules for capitalization. So it's centered with all the major words capitalized. It's not underlined, it's not bolded, it's not bumped up a few font sizes. That's the same rule with the title of your essay. It's not bolded, it's not underlined, there's nothing else fancy happening. It just gets centered with all the major words capitalized. With the works cited, it features the hanging indent because what we want to stand out is that author's last name. That's keyed up into the works cited. So that's what we want to be dominant when we look at the works cited page. So the formatting features of the works cited is what we call hanging indent, and it's the opposite of paragraph. You know, when we start a paragraph, we indent the 1/2-inch, and then everything else, the rest of the lines in the paragraph fall to the left margin. With the works cited, it's the reverse. So the very first line is flush with the left margin, and then anything that would roll into the next line gets indented a 1/2 inch. So that is the page formatting rules. For your in-text citations, there's a couple of things that everybody should be paying attention to. So first off, MLA for our in-text citations, what we want to do is we want to have the author's last name and the page number that the quote landed on in the parenthetical or the in-text citation. The exception to that rule is if you have done some sort of attribution or a signal phrase that indicates who's saying it. So in this situation, this one's actually incorrect. This is a quote talking about a character in the novel, and this would indicate that Nick wrote this, but of course Nick didn't write it. It's Fitzgerald. So we would have to put we're talking about The Great Gatsby here. So that would be if Scott Fitzgerald wrote it. So it has to say the author's last name and then the page number. And that is the standard format for the in-text citation, author's last name and page number. If you don't have an author's last name, let's say you have a source where there's no author on it, then what we would put into this in-text citation, we would put the first 2 words of the title of the article. So, and we're going to put those in quote marks because it's the title of an article. So we put the first 2, maybe 3 words of the title of the article, make sure that would be in quote marks, and then we put the page number. So that's how we would do the in-text citation. So again, there's only 2 types of information that can be in the in-text citation. It is either the author's last name or it's the first 2 words of the title. The reason for that is that then that information in the in-text citation is then keyed up with the works cited. So in this case, if we had the first 2 words there, we would be looking for those first 2 words of that title here because it would be The works cited is always organized alphabetically by author's last name. And then, of course, if there isn't an author's last name, then it's organized alphabetically by the title. So that's why the only two pieces of information that can be in the in-text citation are going to be the author's last name or the title. Note, we never put URLs in the parenthetical citation. That's a common problem I see people do. They'll do something like this, time.com, and that would be their citation, and that's incorrect. You would never have that in there. Bring it back to the original here. Okay, so that's the information for the in-text citation. Now there are some exceptions. So if we have here's another example here. Remember, this is incorrect because this is the character stating this, and we want to put the author here. So we would put Fitzgerald. And that would be who actually wrote that quote. So it's the author's last name and the page number. Now, if we have a situation in which, as right here, where this writer has done a beautiful attributive tag. So the attributive tag is when we give some information about the source. So in this case, we get the title of the source and we get a little bit of kind of context for the quote that's going to follow. And we have the author's name here. So because the author's name is already in the sentence, it would be really repetitive to write that again here. So that should look really strange to you to just say the author's name twice in the same sentence. So in that situation, if you've already done a signal phrase signaling who says your quote or an attributive tag in which you attribute credibility to the source, then we do not put that author's name. We don't repeat it again in the parenthetical citation. We just put the page number. Let's say this was an electronic source and did not have a page number. In that scenario, there is nothing left to put in the parenthetical citation. We've already got the author's name and there is no page number. So in that situation, we just close the quote and we make sure we put the quote marks after the period. So the period goes inside, and that's how the citation would look if there wasn't a page number. In this scenario, there is a page number, so then we remove the period, we put our parenthetical, and then the period goes at the end of the parenthetical citation. Okay, so that covers in-text citations. One other thing I just want to notice, some people want to put a comma in here. That should look really strange. We don't use commas in MLA. Some people want to put a P in there for a page. We don't do that. Some people are confusing MLA with APA, and they're putting like years in there, and that's what the American Psychological Association will put years in there, parenthetical citation. MLA doesn't do that. So I'm forgetting what our original page was here. Oh, page 29. Okay, so that's how we'd want to punctuate the parenthetical citation. Actually, there's no punctuation in it, so it's just the author's name and then the page number. Okay, so that covers the in-text citation. So again, we would put the author's last name with the page number if we don't have any mention of the author's last name in the signal phrase. Again, here's this, he describes, it's describing Nick here. So remember, it's not Nick who's writing this, it's Fitzgerald. So we put Fitzgerald in there, and then we put the page number and close it down. And if we have done something in which we have a signal phrase or an attributive tag, which we have happening here, there's no need to do that. Technically this one, let's take a look at this one, Kent Cartwright. Here's the author, and we get some information about that source. And then notice there's no direct quote in that sentence. So here it's just all kind of preparation for the quote. And then the next sentence, we actually get the quote. Now, because it just says he here, technically in this situation here, we would actually need to put Cartwright here at the end. We only don't need to put the author's last name there at the end if the author's last name is in the very sentence, the same sentence. So in this situation, Cartwright was not mentioned in this sentence, so we would have to put his name there at the end. Okay, so that covers in-text citations. For the works cited, we talked about the formatting. Keep in mind that the works cited is organized alphabetically by author's last name, and if there isn't an author's last name, then it's by the title. And also we are using MLA 8, and MLA 8 always ends with the last part of your citation should always be the location. The location is one of two pieces of information. It's either a link or it's a page number. So it's just one or the other, and that's where it should end. MLA 8 no longer uses this idea of print and web. That was for MLA 7. I don't know if some of you may remember, you used to have to write, like for an electronic source, you'd have to write web, and for a print source, you'd have to write print. So that's under the old style guide, MLA 7. MLA 8 has removed that because in MLA 8, it should be obvious if it's a print or a web source. If it's a print source, it'll have page numbers, and if it's a web source, it'll have a URL at the end. So also, one other quick thing, make sure that when you're doing your citation that you are properly formatting titles. So titles of articles get quotes, and then the titles of the magazine or the journal or the title of a book, title of a movie, whatever I always say big versus little. So the big thing, which would be the title of the journal, gets italicized, and the little thing that lives inside the journal gets quotes. So a big thing would be like a title of a television series, and a little thing might be the title of a specific episode. Title of a book versus title of a chapter. So the big thing would be the book, that would get italicized. The chapter is smaller, it lives inside the book, and that gets quote marks. So that should cover our MLA. So if you have any questions, please email me. Okay, talk to you soon.